Energy healing is a technology of using consciousness to promote health in the body. The body, if we look at the body in its most fundamental nature, we see that the body is also just consciousness. The body, the fleshy, physical part of the body is consciousness, very, very concentrated, very dense, compact. And when the body doesn't feel well, or when it stops working or functioning properly, this is because something's happening on the level of consciousness that's giving rise to the product or the material form not functioning quite properly. So in energy healing, we go to the root or the seed of the problem. We look to consciousness. We look at what's going on the level of consciousness and address that. And the good news is that consciousness is malleable. All the outside, the physical level of the body is also malleable as she moves her eye around. The physical level is malleable to a certain degree, but it's slower and it's, as I mentioned, more dense. And so a lot of times if something's gone wrong in the body, like say a joint isn't working quite right, some bone issue, then surgery, you can do surgery or you could do some chiropractic or something like that. And it takes time. That takes time. And it's like quite a intense manipulation of the tissues, but consciousness manipulates really, really quickly and easily. And definitely certain parts of our body do too. Nervous system is a really fast mover in the body. Nervous system moves, it changes really quickly, which is kind of what we're doing here in these live webinars, is that we're together and we're focusing our awareness and attention together on specific issues. And what happens with the nervous system is, as we focus our awareness, the nervous system bends and adapts to accommodate whatever we're focusing on. So you can imagine that the flow of awareness is one of the big tools of energy healing, that awareness itself is that consciousness. It is consciousness, pure awareness, pure perception, pure consciousness. So we have control over the way we flow our awareness. And energy healing basically is a technology for flowing awareness in specific ways to produce specific effects. It also involves finding the root. This is also flow of awareness, but finding the root or the seed cause of the imbalance or illness. And sometimes it's easy to find the root or seed cause in a kind of emotional level of being. Something that's upsetting can often be the cause of some physical imbalance or problem. But sometimes the imbalance is even deeper than feelings. So part of the art, I would say, of energy healing is figuring out how to get inside, to get from the symptom that's on the surface down into the fine details, the subtle structure of one's own consciousness, to identify the seed of the symptom. And then once the seed has been identified, usually the actual healing part is a no-brainer. Usually, essentially, everything is trying to get back to wholeness. So once the seed has been identified, then it's just a matter of bringing more wholeness, bringing that like blueprint, like the value of wholeness in to that particular seed, shine the light of awareness on the seed, because awareness is that piece of the source of creation that we have control over. We focus it intentionally. So I'm using the backdrop here as a metaphor for the structure of creation. This orange bit down here represents the home of all the laws of nature, the source of creation, the divine, eternal, unbounded, unmanifest, qualityless structure, form of being, amness, that is the source of everything. And then the cloud part represents the material level of creation. And so there's this dynamic point that's between the unmanifest wholeness and the manifest field, the manifest universe. So mostly energy healing happens right down there in that little gappy area between the unmanifest and the manifest. And so part of the art of energy healing is learning how to get awareness down into that that very dynamic and profound level of one's own awareness, of one's own field of consciousness, right down in there, so that once the seeds are identified, then one can actively participate, actively engage, and be aware of and appreciate how wholeness changes the floor or the foundation that's underneath everything that manifests in creation. So we change the foundation a little bit, like a building. Think of a building that's like super malleable. If you go and you say, well, we're just going to like stretch the foundation open a little bit here, we're going to add this extra shape and the foundation of this building. Well, all of a sudden, the whole upper part of the building has this potential. You can build balconies out. You could build extra stories, things like that. So we change the foundation, and then the material level, which takes a little bit longer to change, it gets a chance to change. It's easy to change them. There's a saying, I think, from the Vedas. And by the way, a lot of my knowledge and information is based on Vedic science. But the saying is, when the karma is paid, the cure comes. So the principle here is that we go down and we affect the karma, we affect the subtle structure behind the symptom. And then once that's done, then the cure comes. And for some people, the cure is no more than just realizing, oh my gosh, that I had this problem, maybe some digestive problem. I had this awful digestive problem because I was so angry because of, whatever, we find the seed of it, right? I was so angry. I felt like my boundaries had been violated. And so then we go, oh, okay. So then we figure out, how do we establish healthy boundaries? How do you establish healthy? When you realize, oh, I was letting people walk all over me. Okay, now I'm not going to let people walk all over me. All of a sudden, problem solved. And then the digestion starts to feel better. Not so much anger, imploding anger, but more like, okay, then I can redistribute all this heat in places where it can really do me some good. I will use it to break down the food rather than just giving myself an ulcer or something like that. So much good, so much good. So sometimes just the healing itself is the cure. Sometimes, if it's something that's been around a really long time, it's not. Sometimes as people, we need like a sign or a permission slip from the environment that says, look, I'm giving you this water so you don't feel dehydrated. And somehow drinking the water makes me feel like a little less dehydrated, And that's okay too. There are all kinds of good medicines in our world, like herbal medicines and gems and mantras and good things like that. And even Western medicines, even sometimes it's a Western medicine approach. But as we all know, some people, they have the Western medicine approach, it doesn't work. And some people, they have the Western medicine approach, it does work. So the difference between these two people is that one person did their homework. So this is about doing your homework. The incorrigible teacher. Anyway, all right. So enough about what is energy healing. That was a long one. Let's do the next step, which is we're going to go into about 3 minutes of silence. I shall get my clock up here. And 3 minutes of silence is here to give us all a chance to let our awareness settle down a little bit and experience that source of creation that's deep inside all of us. And it's good to just establish that at the beginning of our session, because we're going to do some big healing today. All right. Thanks for joining me. Let's close our eyes. right. Let's take a few moments and then slowly open the eyes. Take your time. Coming out of the silence slowly helps to integrate it. I'm going to do a little prayer of gratitude. Thank you to the source of creation. Thank you to the mother of creation in all her forms. Thank you to everyone in this live webinar, everyone who's watching now, everyone who will watch in the future, who will be watching in the now for them, and out to the ends of the universe. Thank you to the source of creation for being the whole universe. Thank you for our precious time together, that we may use it effectively and efficiently and profoundly, successfully. Thank you to each one of you for being with me. All right. So, did I miss the prayer of gratitude? No, you didn't miss the prayer of gratitude. You just had it. Now, a brief review from yesterday. So, I thought I had already done a webinar on the astral body, and to my amazement, I had not. Of course, over the years, I've discussed the astral body in a lot of detail in many webinars. So it's not like a new concept for anybody. But yesterday we talked about the structure of the astral body, the range of the astral body. And one of the areas I did not discuss very much, I talked about we put the astral body in perspective, right, with all the other bodies. So there's all these different parts. And one of the areas I did not talk a lot about yesterday was the upper end of the astral body. One of the points was that all these different layers of the physiology, the manifest layers of the physiology, they have their subtler level and then they have their denser, grosser level. And so we talked a lot about how the source of creation opens into the causal level of creation, and then how the causal level of creation goes into the astral body, which is the next layer, more manifest from causal. In some videos, you'll hear me use the word celestial, also to describe that really deepest level of manifestation, the most abstract level of manifestation. But right there at the astral level, between the causal and astral, the resonations of the causal body has these resonating spaces, and the light of pure being goes in and hums inside the resonating space. And the shape of the resonating space gives a direction to the hum. It makes the hum come out a certain way. Like if I make a hum, but if I change the shape of the inside of my mouth and throat, I can make that hum sound different. Right? Interesting, right? It's the same pitch. Like the number of cycles per second has not changed. But by changing all this apparatus here, I can get different overtones to dominate. And the overtones are the part that the ear doesn't hear directly, but it like flavors the quality of the sound. And so this is a little bit how the regions of the causal body work. They're different shapes, you know. Some are more like squishy shapes and some are more like round shapes and so forth. And as a result, the light of pure being, which is very innocent and very pure and comes up the same every time, starts to take on different structure. It like structures itself differently. And so then what happens is these regions of the causal body work together like instruments in an orchestra, right? That you've got oboes that have more of a wah sound, and you have flutes that have more of a woo sound, and you have drums, tong tong, and so forth. And so the different timbres work together to produce interactions. They make interactions, and it's the interactions that start movement. And we talked about how at the astral level, there's a lot of movement because the astral level of the physiologies, it appears, if you have refined perception, subtle vision, it appears as threads. And my husband wanted me to bring up an example of that, that years ago, when I was not well, and I had been groomed for years to be a music teacher. So I understood a lot about music, but it wasn't my nature. Really, I don't think it was my nature to be a music teacher, because teaching in the school systems, you have to be a bit aloof, and you can't really be invested in your students, really. If you teach, and I was teaching kindergarten through high school level music in a private school, and you can't invest in your students. You can't, because they leave. They go away. Where I am now is more suited to my nature, because it's my nature to be invested. I am invested in you. I love you. I want you to have this knowledge. I want you to be well. So it works a lot better for me to be an energy healer. So I was not meant. And nature was like, get out of there. And I'm like, but I'm good at this, and I can do this. And I don't know how to do anything else. And, whining and complaining. And so nature slapped me really hard, and I got really sick. And one day in the dead of winter, I felt well enough to put clothes on. And so my husband said, let's go to the mall. So we went to the mall. And I had this moment in the mall that was, quite a dramatic moment, where I realized that all along I'd had this ability to perceive the subtle layers of creation. And the mall really lit up that day. It lit up for me. And one of the main things that I noticed that day as the mall was lighting up for me was that I could see threads of light everywhere, threads of awareness or consciousness, and people connected. They were connecting to each other. They were connecting to the things that they had attachments to, the things they bought. They had attachments to their money. They had attachments to things outside the mall. It's interesting. One of the ladies in the chat just mentioned Alex Gray, and a different lady last night also mentioned Alex Gray and his artwork. So yeah, everybody can check out Alex Gray's artwork. We checked it out after the webinar last night. Beautiful. Yeah. So these threads of light are everywhere. And I was also popping up the picture from my dear friend, Harry, which I know you guys have all seen that picture, but it's just such a great picture that he's drawn of basically the physical body is here. And then all of this myriad of all these goldeny threads. And I wanted to pop this up for you because it absolutely looks this way. When I saw Harry's picture, I was like, oh my gosh, Harry, you see the same thing I see, but he's an artist, right? So he drew pictures of it. But here's the interesting part. We didn't talk that much last night about how the astral body starts to interface with the aura and the emotional body. But the aura is part of this story, because if you look at the astral field and the web of life, like right smack in the middle of it, you see it looks like whitish goldeny threads. He had to use some darker browns and yellows to make this picture pop. But for the most part, it's more like threads of light. It really looks like threads of light. And they do have a kind of goldenish quality to them. Oh, here's another one. We'll go with this one. Anyway, but what happens is these threads, they start out very, very fine, like at the deeper level of the astral body, very like a gossamer fabric. The threads are all woven together like a cloudier, puffy sort of appearance. And then as they become denser and denser, they become more well-defined. But then as they become denser and denser, they become defined with more, more identifiable flavors of awareness. Close that. More identifiable flavors. And what that does is it starts to give rise to color. And so we could say that the subtlest, most abstract level of the emotional body is the aura. It's like moving in a sea of color. Has anybody ever gone swimming at sunrise or sunset? I don't know if you've ever done that, but I used to do that. And it's amazing to be in a swimming pool when the sun is rising and the sky is full of pinks and purples and all these beautiful oranges and all these beautiful colors, because it's like swimming in a sea of colors or a pool of color. And that auric level, the aura level of the body, but also the field. The field also has colors in it, right? Because every single layer of the physiology resides within a field that has those same laws of nature dominating and same types of structures in it. So you get into this area where it's more like just the movement and the interaction of colors. And then those colors are actually subtle forms, the subtlest forms of the emotional body, which is the next layer up. So, excuse me, we could almost put another layer in there, which is the astral layer, but it already seems like so many layers. And, you know, in the Vedic science, they only identify like 5 koshas or something. So I've got 6. Seems like already a bit much. Although some systems, I think there's a Buddhist system that identifies something like 33 layers. You can divide it into as many layers as you like. But I have found that this astral level there's a consistency. There's a consistency in it. So it makes a nice layer all by itself. Anyway, that has to do with the structure and also the relationship of the astral body to the rest of the field of the physiology. And that fairly well sums up yesterday's presentation. Now we go into today's presentation. And what I wanted to do for today was that a lot of great questions came in, as usual, so many wonderful questions. And so I wanted to spend this session kind of bringing out more information and ideally some healings for our astral bodies in conjunction with the questions. And one more point just before I dive into questions, and that is that the threads of the astral body are not constrained by space-time. They allow our awareness to move at infinite speed into the future and into the past, to go anywhere, really anywhere. And it's through the astral body that some of the best diagnosis of the seeds of suffering occurs at the astral level. Like if you've got suffering on the surface and you don't know why you're being punished or you're suffering or whatever, the astral body is a very good place to ground awareness, to anchor awareness, because from the astral body, you can pick up threads that will lead you to the seed of the illness. And whatever is that symptom, it's held in place by these threads, by astral threads, and by all the subtler levels of the physiology. The energy levels of the physiology are functioning in such a way that they're holding that symptom in place. So it's going down to the astral level is a great way of bringing that aside, quieting down the awareness, bringing it down quieter to that level where awareness flows. That's the defining characteristic of the astral level. Awareness flows. Because anytime and anywhere your awareness flows, it's literally flowing on one of these astral threads. It's flowing from that. And sometimes it can feel like, well, my awareness is just kind of like radiating out. It's just radiating out in every direction. But when you have the radiating out experience, it means that you're using these subtler threads, the finer, the more delicate ones that start to show up like a fabric. And that's what gives rise to that radiating of awareness experience, which obviously is a subtler way to manipulate awareness than just very specific, I am going to the store, right? That's very specific. You've got one thread, I am going to the store. But then if you're in that, like, no, I'm just sitting quietly in my meditation, I feel my awareness radiating, then that's like it's a much subtler form of flow of awareness. And it's just great to know that this is, I'm picking up my water again. It's just great to know that this is what you're doing and how you're doing it and why you're doing it, because learning to manipulate awareness in various sophisticated ways is part of the skill set required to be good at energy healing. We have to, like, first of all, know that you're already doing that. And second of all, do it intentionally so that you have that ability as needed, as situations arise. Then you can just do what you need to do with your awareness to create the solution, to repair the problem. Example, when I was so sick years ago, one of the things that happened was some familial stress that I inherited. It was a really rough one. It was very rough. And my father had just passed on, and he had been protecting me from this particular familial stress. And because his father had committed suicide. So this morning, I found a little teeny piece. I faced off with the suicide energy back then and overcame it, obviously. But a little teeny piece is so small, I could barely recognize it, but it was a little piece of the suicide. It was there. I found it this morning. And what I did was I just, awareness deep, so silent and so deep. And within the depths of the silence, I could feel being coming forth with the resources that were required to take that little thing right there and to just neutralize it, to resolve it, to give it what it needed so that it felt better, basically, and bring it home, just bring it home. So once you find it, once you find those little seeds, then the solution almost always presents. Okay. So question, does the astral body have a shape or boundary? Yeah, it's essentially toroidal shaped. And this is a great question. It ties in to a really important question that came up via email a couple days ago. And I probably should have started with this one because I didn't get to it last night. But here's another question. I'm going to answer that question, but I'm going to add in this other question also because they both kind of fit together. Her question is, she's confused about the boundaries of the astral body. Are we still, and here's like more specific, are we still separate from others, but also entangled together in the web of life? Oh, right. Because the space, and also I'll often identify astral, causal, and then the two seats of being as like collective levels of self. Emotional through physical, individual self, but astral through being, pure being is more collective level. So like, where do you set boundaries? Basically, where do you set boundaries in the astral body? Entangled in the web of life. Can we create boundaries for the astral body? For example, unpleasant people or viruses. Yeah, absolutely. And she says she likes working from home because there's no people around. Right? It's like natural and doesn't want to pick up negative influences in the environment. Great question. So the difference between your astral body and the web of life is specifically the way the energy moves and not so much the materials out of which it's made. Right? So at the physical level, it's like, well, I know where the boundaries of my physical body are because this part's more fleshy and this part's made of air over here. So I can tell like exactly, like that's the exact edge of the difference between my physical body and the air around me. Whereas the astral body is not so much clear as far as materials. Materially speaking, there's more of a balance of the subtle components of the five elements. So the five elements range from right at the causal level. So the causal field has resonating spaces, has five big resonating spaces for each of the five elements, right? And these are larger spaces in which smaller resonating spaces are nested. Anyway, at the astral level and down at the causal level, they have equal status. And at the astral level, they mostly have the five elements in their subtle form and their form as consciousness also have equal status. So we don't see materially the astral body looks so very different from the astral field around it, but it has to do with flow. And as I mentioned before, this is one of the primary characteristics of the astral body and the astral field, is that this is where awareness flows. So there's a natural inward and outward flow, because this is the cycle of creation that we've talked about a lot, that exists in every particle of creation, right? It exists everywhere. The outward stroke, the inward stroke. And if you want a much more detailed description, look at yesterday's video, because I really spent some time with that cycle of creation at the beginning of yesterday's video. And I'm glad I did, because it was important. But here in the astral body, that dynamic is kind of like happening constantly. There's like an outward flow and an inward flow. And yesterday we talked a lot about the cord of light, which is the biggest astral cord in the space of our astral bodies, is this center core of the physiology. And I didn't mention, but I need to mention, that all these cords in the astral body are also living form. They're also subtle being. They're being. They're beings. They're beings. Just like your gut is full of bacteria that are beings, so the astral body is essentially comprised of forms of consciousness that are the self, but they also have their own specific independence as well. The cords that are our cords of light, they're ancient. They exist throughout creation. If you have a physical, material, human body, it only is designed to live so long. It tends to deteriorate because of the third law of thermodynamics being very highly functional at the surface of creation, at the material level of creation. But at the astral level, the third law of thermodynamics doesn't function that way. And all these forms, all these threads of awareness or consciousness that are birthed right through our being. We birth awareness through us, right? The source of creation births pure awareness, and then it comes up, it gets cultivated through its interaction with the filter of the human nervous system. And we think, I'm going to the store. You have the thought, I'm going to the store. And you birth a little wave, a little thread of awareness that has a life of its own. It has a life of its own. It's a big universe full of life. It's life everywhere. The eternal nature of our soul is associated, is connected with this level, these finer levels of consciousness that go on and on and on and on forever. So this is a more eternal level of ourself. We show up as a toroidal form of threads. Humans can look like that. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful, that toroidal human form. Just as the physiology is beautiful. I'm referencing back today's a day of one of the aspects of intelligence of creation that represents the arts and the educational process and all the spiritual wisdom, all of it. There are many ways of looking at the energy field of the physiology. But what's important is that the outer edges of the astral body, the outer edge of that toroidal form, there's a really dynamic inward-outward flow, right? Because the nature of the energy from being is it flows out, and it flows out to the edge of the astral field. And then right there at the edge of one's own personal astral field, it folds back in again. So there's again, the important dynamic point of concern is where the energy shifts direction, which is the edges of the astral body. So at this point, let's just take a look at everyone's astral bodies. So grateful for the privilege. If you want your astral body to be seen, some people don't want their astral bodies to be seen, no problem. Just for what it's worth, you look yourself at your astral body. And what we see is that junction point, that place at the surface, yesterday I was comparing it up here. It correlates with this area right at the peak of the manifesting process, where human beings are experts, where we are masters, is up at this level. And this outer edge of the astral body kind of correlates with that. It has a lot of the same types of laws of nature, which means purification, right? And one of the things the astral body does is it protects you, it purifies and protects you from influences from the environment, like viruses or other kinds of like negative energies or whatever. It protects. So thicker can be better. And for some people, the overall threading of their astral body is like more delicate. Like their whole astral body is sort of made up of sort of thinner, more tender, more delicate threads in general, percentage wise. And for other people, it's a little bit, those threads are a little bit thicker, more robust. What you want it to be a little bit like your gut bacteria. You want the wider range of diversity of threads is better, because that gives you more flexibility and more stability. It gives you more resources to work with. So people whose astral bodies, the threads of the astral body, tend to err on the side of being a little thinner and more delicate, also most often have the experience of being very sensitive to environmental energies. And we tend to associate those finer, thinner, more delicate threads with the more abstract levels of the astral body, hence the more spiritual, the more closer to being levels of the astral body. So you'd say, well, that's good, right? Like more spiritual people are like that. And the thing is, it's true that as people kind of orient themselves to be more toward the source of creation and more abstract in their perception, experience, etc., then the tendency is the astral body showing up a little bit more as delicate threads. But in order to be sturdy and powerful and able to navigate all kinds of experiences in this universe, we need both. So it's a little bit like the healing for ego that we've done in previous workshops, I think, or webinars. I think we've done healings for ego, where it's not just about being, I am the whole universe and all this material field is nothing but Maya. No. It's about, I am all of it. I am the whole spectrum of creation, and I need my physical material constrained by space-time parts of me. I need that as much as I need my infinite, unbounded, eternal parts of me. Like, they work together. They have been created together. They're created. The absolute value creates the material value for a reason. And so it's the body needs to be here, and all the individuality needs to be here. And so also these thicker, more sort of sturdy, more dense threads in the astral body also need to be here. Not to confuse, right? Not to think, well, if I have more dense threads in my astral body, then maybe I'll be more dense, and I won't be sensitive to other people's feelings and so forth. No, you can have your cake and eat it too, because we're actually looking at the structure of this. See, most people, they don't even think about it. This isn't the topic of conversation or thought. But here, it's like we wake up and go, oh, we have hands. Oh, look how many things we can do now, right? If you didn't know you had hands, so many things you could not do. So now we know, we have an astral body. It's constructed like this. So, now here's so many things we can do. So just for everybody, what's happening is a download, cosmic download, directly from that level of universal intelligence responsible for spiritual knowledge and responsible for learning and responsible for all the archives of information and all the arts. The range consistency, variety, the diversity of the threads in the astral body. This beautiful, beautiful download is providing everyone in our webinar with the vision and the understanding of just how far the astral body can express itself. What is the pure potential of the astral body? What is the full potential of the astral body? Not just to have delicate threads, but to have threads so delicate that they are energy essence, and so big and strong and robust, especially at the outer edges. Coming into that, is it the outer, and then it comes into the central core, which is the big one, right? That's the big one that goes through our cord of light that goes through the body. So it's like a tree, kind of like a tree with a big trunk, right? And then it's got its larger branches and then smaller branches. And so, you know, like a more mature tree, if a tree is fortunate enough to be planted somewhere not by power lines, and so nobody comes along and prunes it heavily, the tree has the opportunity to grow symmetrically, to grow with a nice arrangement and variety of larger branches, which we think of inside our body as our meridians inside our body, right? And but also outside, and then down to the finer threads, all the way down to the little stamens coming off the flowers on the tree. In Vedic science, today is an auspicious day that kind of marks the beginning of spring. And that's when the trees make their flowers. It's a very special time in the Midwest. Anyway, so that download for everyone. And what that does is it provides both a blueprint and a template. So the template is the overarching expression of the potential of the astral body. The blueprint is specific for you. Each person's astral body is going to be shaped in a manner that is unique to their specific needs and their nature and their the kind of work you do and all that you experience. So it accommodates your personal experience right there. So there, I'm feeling the accommodation of the personal experience. I'm feeling lots of movement down here at the foundational level, because the causal body, then it has to move around a little bit. Some of those resonating spaces have to adapt and adjust themselves to the fact that you now have a far more diverse and full-bodied and wide-ranging spectrum of threads in the astral body. Just going back, double checking. Oh, so beautiful. Oh, so beautiful. Oh, so what is this going to do? This is going to change each one of our relationship with the web of life. Because it's through the astral body that the astral body is the level where we first connect up with the web of life, first contact web of life. Or we first contact the environment. Of course, we interact at the superficial material level, but really our first connection is through the web of life. And when the astral body is so beautifully formed, so round, so robust, so buxom, right? That then such an individual acts a little bit more like a node. It's a little more, I would say, integrated node in the web of life. So there are threads that come into the body from every corner of creation, every star in creation, every part of the universe has threads that connect in. But when the astral body is so organized, it's so orderly, it's so beautiful, even more aligning with sacred geometry, right? Then that individual, we as individuals, gain access to archives of universal information that were not otherwise available. because it requires, it's like upgrading your instrument, right? If you're a beginner musician and you've got a nice little student model instrument, there is so much you can do with that instrument. But at some point, your technique supersedes the capability of the instrument, and you have to upgrade to a better instrument. And when you do upgrade to a better instrument, you find that there is oh so much more beautiful music that you can play, and you can play oh so much more beautifully, and you can do so many more things. You can produce more. You can produce music that moves the hearts of the individuals. We've been listening to a lot of Itzhak Perlman. He's playing the Stradivarius that Yehudi Menuhin used to play. And so he's, one of the great Stradivarius violins of the earth. And let me tell you, he's a great musician, and he could probably take a student violin and make it sound good. But what that man can do on that Stradivarius, oh my goodness, just something, right? Yes. So this is the same thing. You guys a lot of you guys have been with me a long time, and your technique is good. You can focus your attention like nobody's business. So now we have this beautiful, orderly, robust, powerful, astral body that knows its boundaries, that can expand big. When you go step out on the beach and you're out by the ocean, you can expand big as you need, but it is able to, at that point, maintain the integrity of the boundaries of the astral body. So even then, negativity just bounces off. It's like a Teflon coating or something. It just bounces off. It's not inclined to come in. And viruses will tend to flag individuals whose immune systems are weak. There is a relationship between the astral body and the immune system, obviously, because the astral body is our first contact with the environment, and the immune system is that system of the physiology designed to handle our relationship with environmental influences. So viruses also know that they have astral bodies, and they will put little flags, little energy signatures on people's astral bodies if that person has already been exploited once by a virus, right? It's already weak. So the flags don't stick, and the viruses can't come in as much. Let's look at some more questions. Here's someone who started to meditate 3 years ago. Oh, there's pain around the heart area. It lasts even when meditation is over. All medical tests are good. Oh, see, other people have that experience too. Can you please comment? One question is, is the pain only there during meditation, or is it all the time? And I guess maybe I don't have to ask that question. The truth is that the pain is a response to purification that's happening in this area, this heart area. But when I look in, and I close my eyes to look, so I can look at the subtle levels. I look at the astral, the feelings, the emotions, the feelings, what's going on at the astral, what's going on at the causal. What I see is a kind of a deep-seated lack of self-trust, that somehow, somewhere along the lines, you had some experience that made it so that you, suffering of the past, it was like, how could I have let myself be exploited? How could I have let myself suffer like that? There's something like, when I look in, this is what I see as the seed, is that the discomfort or the suffering that you've experienced from past caused you to not trust yourself. Because this heart center is the seat of your essential nature, basically. A lot of the essential self sits here. And it's also the part of the body that represents the area that never lies to you. You can lie to yourself with your brain, but you can't really lie to yourself with your heart. As a result, what can happen is that when that area gets that sense of like not trusting oneself, doubting oneself, lack of confidence, can get seated here. And then it makes it quite difficult to be sure what's right and what's wrong. And, should I be doing what my conscience tells me to do and what my intuition tells me to do? Or should I be going with what some authority tells, there's a tendency to look to authorities like that. So I see more points in class. So there, relationships have been the point of focus for it. All relationships, the one relationship that trumps all others, the one that is the most important relationship of all relationships, is your relationship with your own source. None of the others are more important. Only during meditation. So there's, it's that relationship. It's the relationship between individuality and source of creation. I would imagine, she says, I would imagine, and I'm looking here, patterns. There are habits, patterns, impressions, memory patterns of avoidance of negativity. And the pattern of avoidance of negativity involves run away from what isn't comfortable. What it does is it tends over the long course of time to a little bit corrupt the relationship with totality or wholeness. Because the problem with problems is that you can't really run away from them. You can't. That if something is coming to you, it's going to come. And you can delay the problems until you have more resources. You are more than welcome to delay as long as you like. But as long as you're gathering resources for dealing or coping with the problem. But at some point, when the resources have been gathered, it is each person's duty to deal with the problem. And the heart's truth is the problem's still here. So when you go in, it's like you see, oh, that problem, that issue is still there. Ooh, ouch. Ooh, ouch, I don't want to. And the pain is connected. It's part of the structure of karma. So when difficulties are present, it's a reflection of the fact that there's some karma that needs to be resolved. And karma is when you have a knot of these astral threads that have gotten twisted around each other and they're not doing what they're supposed to do. They're blocked up. They're blocking flow, among other things. I mean, the whole purpose of all these astral threads is to promote flow of awareness. And so when they get sort of knotted up together, they block flow, they block the evolutionary process. And this karmic knot of this type has to be dealt with at some point or another. But what the karmic knot will do is it will create its own outer shell or coating of very intense emotions, very painful emotions specifically painful to you, so that you will not be able to enter into that seed of karma and untwist those threads until you are ready, until you have the resources and the capability to use those resources to unknot that particular thread of karma. So in a way, the emotional coating shell around the karmic knot is a blessing because it kind of keeps you from addressing that problem until the time is right. But the other thing to note is that this feeling of pain, this heart pain that you have, is not the whole story. It's just, it looks like it. When you come up to it, it'll look like, oh my gosh, it's so big and it's so difficult. How will I ever get past it or through it? But the truth is that you can get past it and through it because it doesn't go all the way in. The emotional part, the emotional pain is just on the outside. And that when your awareness becomes fluid enough to pass through that and pass underneath or within, you could say, that emotional pain, then you get into where the threads are. And what you'll find is the landscape of a karmic knot is that there's always a mother thread. There's always a mother thread. And to me, it looks like the mother thread is lack of self-trust. That's what it's looking like to me. So I recommend to take this information and let yourself find a way to trust. When the one relationship is the predominating relationship, then it gives you an extra card in your hand, because no matter how challenging or difficult relationships become, there's a part of you that can step away. You can step away as needed. And sometimes if you're with people who are unwilling to evolve, who are unwilling to face the issues that they need to face, then you need to give them space to be themselves and to do that and to do their runaway for as long as they need to until they're ready to come back and to look at what's really going on. It's a gentle process. When we're working with consciousness, it's not like, sometimes if we come in from the outside to change the body or to change shapes or something, it can be kind of feel invasive to the body, like surgery feels invasive to the body. But working with consciousness is very delicate. It's very tender. And you only have to do as much as you feel comfortable doing at any one given moment. And know that every little bit that you do will lead you to the eventual goal of returning that pain that you experience in your heart, bringing it home and resolving it in the source of creation. The pain's like, no, I don't want to resolve. It's okay. It doesn't have to resolve now. The reason it's like that is to give you time to look really deeply at the subtle structure of your own heart center and your own energy field and your own self. I definitely recommend this exercise because this putting the hands here helps to resolve. It resolves and it resolves and it resolves. It just brings the resources that allows the resolution to happen very, very gently. So if meditation's too powerful at this time, doesn't feel comfortable, you can just put the hands here. It's just so simple, so gentle. May you find the resolution comes very soon. Thank you for that great question. Another question. The download was and is so powerful and profound. Oh, I'm so glad you liked it. Body heated up and started in the middle of the spine, as though the moment I asked the question, my astral body enlivened and appreciated and has been wanting to expand. That's beautiful. So very tender and full of fullness. Thank you. Thank you to everyone. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you for the comment. Thank you for the comment. Anybody else experience that the download felt like something was going on there, something valuable? Yeah, a few hands raised. Oh, very sweet. That's very nice. Beautiful, beautiful. May it always serve you. May it serve you and continue to serve you for all times to come. And may your beautiful astral body be symmetrical and sacred form and just rich and full and magnificent. Okay, what about the solar plexus? Well, that's a good question. Solar plexus, also good. Also one of the chakra centers. And each chakra center is like a little star. It's got its own inner flow. So all the parts of the body have their own astral reality, right? Just like every organ and every part of the body has its etheric form. So also at the finer level, at the deeper level, each of the chakras and the sub-chakras, I think there's something like 127 nadis or something, which are like little energy center nodes in the body. They all have their astral reality, and they all act like little nodes. And of course, Oh, no surprise there. At the astral level of creation, just as our astral bodies are like nodes in the web of life, so within our astral body, all the chakras, each of the chakras and each of the down to the nadis and the little nodes, they're all like a fractal. It's like a big fractal, right? World has a fractal form at that level. And so the healing, the download that came in for the astral body is then by virtue of the administrating guidance of your body elemental, which is a causal form. It's that important structure that connects the physical body to the intelligence that allows it to grow properly and to heal and to repair itself and to function properly. The body elemental is able to create a kind of a space for your whole physiology so that the beautiful form, the beautiful download for the astral body goes in and then makes so beautiful the forms at all the chakra points and all the down to the nodes, all the smallest nodes. So from the smallest nodes to the biggest nodes, that beautiful cosmic form presents itself. It shows up, and the body adjusts. And just even though consciousness can move infinitely fast at the level of the astral body, at the level of the causal body, and being beyond infinite was created by the being, but still just a moment to sit and enjoy this deeper application of the download of perfection of astral form. Like a crystal, right? We've done that before. We've talked about that before, how the crystals on the inside of the crystal at the molecular level, the actual molecules have these nice little rigid sides. Like the molecules are shaped in these lovely little hexagonal and octagonal shapes. And then that's why the crystal itself grows in a way that's got these lovely little flat sides. So like a fractal, like a crystal. Years ago, my friend Nick mentioned that there was this point where the body, the energy field of the body would become crystalline. And I guess now I'm finally ready for that information. I guess now we're all finally, that information's finally coming to the surface. Okay, let's see. So that was that question. Okay, so here's a question about working with emotions. Healthier structure. Yeah, so we've talked a little bit now about the emotional body's relationship with the astral body and, of course, the causal body, and how the aura is kind of in between, because at the aura level, the emotions are experienced as frequencies of light. So that would be like the subtlest level of the emotional body, right? That the emotions are not so much experienced as gripping emotions, but more almost like something that you'd see in your environment, like just as a flavor of light. This ties into something that was just flashing past me. Well, it ties into the fact that the emotional body, you could say then, the emotional body has roots, into the astral and causal levels of the physiology, because those resonations at the causal level of creation, we talked about yesterday, how they're kind of archetypal. Like some of the spaces, the resonating spaces in the causal field are like, they're resonating just the value of pure truth or justice or compassion or forgiveness or something like that. And then they're also larger forms that incorporate a bunch of those. Like if you bring together compassion and mercy and forgiveness and recognition, and so you start to get a larger form that becomes identified with the ascended master Mary, Mother Mary, right? Who she's kind of like the embodiment of compassion. Jesus is also an ascended master, considered ascended master, embodiment of compassion and unconditional love and that kind of thing. So then you get these, you start combining those resonating spaces and you get these forms that are archetypal forms, archetypal structures that are also part of you. Because humans are made big. We're as big from all the way physical material, all the way to pure unmanifest being. And so at the causal level, your causal body, my causal body is as big as the whole universe. And it includes all those forms, all archangels and ascended masters and all types of beings of light and so forth are really, they're like they're sitting and humming in that area next to being. And they're bowing down to the divine, bowing down to the divine constantly. These are parts of our physical body, of our body, the manifest part of our body, but just subtle manifest. Astral body, we start to engage and put it into motion, apply it to life. So yes, the emotional body has roots all the way down to the causal level, because some of those causal spaces are just for different types of love, are just for different types of truth, are just for all the different feelings that we tend to identify. So if up at the emotional body is some feeling that feels rough, like we were just talking about, this experience, sometimes when people try to settle down, they bump into this rough patch of emotion. When awareness settles down sufficiently, and I can tell you this from having faced off with that suicide energy years ago, the emotions only go so deep. They don't have much structure deep down. So it's possible to position awareness deeper than the emotion. And this goes the same if you're dealing with karmic knots, that there's this outer shell of emotion, but you can quiet the awareness to a more quiet level. The emotions are like this, they're active, and it's like this hard shell. It's like a fort, like a wall around a fort. It's this big thing here. It's like, I can't get past it. But when awareness settles down sufficiently, it goes to a level that's deeper than the emotion. And then you're witnessing. And when you're witnessing the emotion, it cannot grip you. It cannot grip you. You are bigger than it. And when you are bigger than it, then you can draw up the resources required to help resolve it. Everything's just trying to get home. We're all just trying to get home. Question here: greater symmetry and health of the astral elemental body brings greater health to the physical. Absolutely. So how much should we care for this part of us daily? Oh, that's such a nice question. That's a beautiful question. Thank you for asking. Is there an exercise to improve the health of the astral body? Please, and what is a true emotion versus a regular one? That's another question. So let's take one at a time. Anytime awareness moves anywhere, you are fortifying and strengthening your astral body. But a lot of people don't think about it. They don't know that the movement of awareness is an astral function. So the thing is, part of the story here is it's a little bit like the shift in consciousness between God consciousness and unity consciousness. That in Vedic science, there are these sort of, it's like a system of understanding how human consciousness evolves from sleep, being in dead asleep, to being like in Brahmi Chaitana, and it's like the highest level of enlightened awareness. So there are all these grades and levels, but some of the moves from the one to, there's certain things that you do to get from one to the next, right? And this move between God consciousness and unity consciousness involves the introduction of a piece of information they call mahavakyas, these like famous sayings that if a person's ready, all the teacher does is they say the famous saying to the student, and the student goes, oh my God, I got it. And they just like flip into unity, flip from God consciousness into unity consciousness. So it's a little bit like that, right? I'm not saying that I'm a great teacher or that I'm blah, 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 whatever. No, but because I think ultimately we find the true guru within each of us. Each of the guru in his archetypal form is also one of those causal structures. So there comes a point where, and I can tell you from people who've been very close to very, very famous, very powerful gurus, that there comes a point where the guru says, now you need to not sit at my feet anymore. I love you. And so I'm asking you to go away. And that's always like a difficult moment, right? For the devotee, but also a necessary moment, because the guru knows that if the devotee sits at their feet like too much, the devotee actually will be detracting from their own evolution, because they'll be putting it all onto the feet of the guru. And at some point, y'all got to be your own boss. So that's just the way it be. The world is coming to this point, right, where we have to, which is bringing me to another question. But anyway, not wanting to leave out the important questions. Anyway, knowing that when your awareness moves, it moves like it spins through these threads of the astral field. That alone makes every movement of awareness more awake in itself. I know that's not like an actual concrete exercise that you can practice. So I'm going to think about it, because there could be a nice exercise that I could bring up for the astral body. But like other things in this world, it's good to test these things before we give them to everybody. And I don't have one handy just in my bag of tricks. So but yeah, let's give it a few weeks and see what comes up. I will let you know. What's the difference between a true emotion versus a regular one? All emotions are valid. They're all valid. They're all true from whatever level of consciousness we're at. But when awareness is more at the surface, then it's easier to be gripped by the emotions. And when the awareness is more subtle, then the emotions are kind of like, it's like sitting deep inside the ocean and the waves are coming along up on the top, and down at the bottom, you're just feeling this, even though the wave up top could be a big wave. And emotions are like that. They're wavy, they move, they never stay the same. They're all constantly on the go. Okay. It's just our time right now, but there was a final question that I really did want to kind of get to. It's a little bit political in nature. And it's about healing to create some unity at this time in our world. This is one of our dear Canadian participants. And she's saying that the trucker convoy is shaken and stirred the entire country. Girl, it has shaken and stirred the entire world. That trucker convoy, let me tell you, even though the mainstream media is nothing but trying to turn them all into enemies and so forth, this is it's a really beautiful thing that's happening. And I understand they're going to great lengths to leave Ottawa in better condition than they found it, to clean places and to upgrade, to repair stuff. I mean, it's really amazing what the truckers are doing. It's really amazing. The level of care and love that's behind what they're doing is really something special. So, our world is evolving right now. It's going through the biggest. I think we can fairly say, out of all fairness, we can say our world, our collective, the collective of the entire globe is going through the biggest evolutionary. We love the truckers. We here in the US love the truckers. It's going through the biggest change and transformation, biggest evolutionary change we've ever gone through, bar none. Because in the past, there have been huge things that happened, huge catastrophic earth events, volcanoes and earthquakes and tsunamis and stuff. And there have been plagues. There was like the Black Plague that wiped out something like 2/3. Was it 2/3 or a third of Europe? It was 2/3 and 1/3. I can't remember which third was which, but it was a lot of people. But this is the whole world. This is the whole world. There is no part, there's no country, there's no part of this world that has not been touched by the purification that we've been through over the last 2 years. And it's here, like those difficult emotions, it's here to bring collective awareness to bear upon the needs of the time and to get subtle. Europe loves the truckers too. To go deep. We're going deep. As a collective, we're going deep and redefining what's really meaningful, valuable, and important in this world. And I love the way this sweet, beautiful woman presented this question in terms of creating unity, right? I mean, the problem is a problem of division, but the solution is a solution of unity. And that unity is established by recognizing that the one relationship that's really important is the relationship that we have with ourselves. I think that what we were talking about just earlier than this was also really important for this particular issue, which is people have not been trusting their own inner truth. I think that's where we come back to the truckers and all those individuals who would like to see more unity in the world and not be dividing the people in our world between the haves and the have-nots, because that doesn't really help our goal. And I think the whole thing came up because there were divisions, and there have been divisions for centuries. And it was like me working with that little piece of that little suicide energy this morning. It was like small and it was sitting under the surface and nobody was noticing it. And so this event occurred that brought it up to the surface and showed that there are dynamics that are going on at a cultural level that sort of tend to put people in categories. I think they call it, there's a name for it. There's a name for this thing where people identify themselves more with the group that they identify themselves with than with themselves as an individual. And the thing is, we have to be flexible enough to do both. We need to be able to think, thank you, identity politics. Thank you. Yes, that's what it is, identity politics. And the thing about identity politics is it doesn't allow truth and justice to come through. Because if you say, the example that I've been using is, say you have a small town with 100 white men who are married and 98 of them are beating their wives. Then the town is like, oh, we have to serve justice. So we shall punish all white men who are married. Well, the 2 white men who are not beating their wives, then like they're being unjustly treated because it's identity politics. It's not going on a case-by-case individual basis. It's just going, all the people in this category are all going to be treated the same. And that's not good. That's not good. So but we do need both. In our culture, it's good to recognize that there are all these there's all this variety. There are people who speak different languages, and there's a lot of people that speak French, and there's a lot of people that speak Spanish, and there's a lot of people that speak German and English and Thai and Chinese and Russian, and and it's great. It's like the groups are good. They're good. But when it comes to, lazy thinking using stereotypes and pigeonholing instead of really living, yes, I agree completely. Yes. Anyway, so I guess that's how me getting political right there at the end. And I try not to get too political on you guys. I love you, and I realize that there's a big range in our group. We have We have enlightened souls. That's why I say the first relationship is this relationship. If you've got this one straightened out, then all the others are less important. And it provides a foundation for unity and at the same time, the flowering of individual differences. We need both. Yeah. Yeah. She's saying, I mentioned before that some people, if they're really intentionally closing down so much, then sometimes the lesson needs to be enough to kind of like push they're going like this. And the lesson has to be hard enough to push their hands off their eyes so they can see what they need to look at. Yeah. Oh, she's so sweet. Do you see everybody, panelists, everybody, that the lessons keep presenting themselves until we all learn? Yeah. So we're just going to keep, and me too, and I have to be really tiptoey around these issues that are currently quite divisive and quite difficult in our world right now, because I want everyone to have a chance to resolve their problems and issues and come home. I want us all to come home. So may we all enjoy home. May it be sweet. May it be a place of comfort. May this be a place of comfort. Thank you all so much for joining me today. And sorry I went a little bit over, but I appreciate it. Almost everyone stayed to the end. Bless your hearts. So I guess I'll close and we'll have another webinar in about a month. And some of you, I will be seeing you in a few days. And I'm looking forward to uploading a lot more information online for everybody. And bye. I love you. Have a beautiful weekend. Thank you. Bye.